It was Cinco de Mayo 2022 when I departed Florida to visit David. The temperature in Orlando was 92 degrees, 'twas 58 and overcast with a drizzle as the plane taxied into the Indianapolis terminal. David's wife Dawn and I talked after my arrival at their home. The dogs made sure David was awake despite the late hour, and I believe the cumulative sound of barking chorus of Maltese would rank third in the unsanctioned prisoner of war tortures behind number 1, waterboarding, pulling out fingernails, number 2, and 3 being held in a small room with a tribe of barking Maltese. The barking chorus of white walking mops followed, and David greeted me with a firm handshake while loving dogs sought attention close at hand. They bounced around on the mattress and pillows, and one played with the covers. Another licked my hand for close to 10 minutes with a very smooth tongue, I might add, whereas my kitty's tongue is equivalent to, let's say, a 60 grit sandpaper. The other 2 doggies continued to frolic, looking for a reason to bark. David was resolute. An oxygen tube was looped over each of his ears, and he spoke in the dim light of the TV. He told me he had noticed a shortness of breath about 10 weeks prior. Then, upon the urging of Dawn, he went to be tested for COVID-19. Further testing proved to be stage 4 cancer. Although the cancer seemed to have come on suddenly, it had been in his body for some time. The next morning, a traveling nurse stopped by at 11 a.m. to drain the fluid from his collapsed left lung and to help him breathe. She left with very little success. While Don prepared venison spaghetti for lunch, David and I talked, and he reclined on his couch. A protective pillow was nearby to fend off the happy dogs who wanted to jump on him, and a big smile came over his face when remembering the robot commander he got for Christmas back in 1960. "Rockets shot from the robot's head," he said, and then he shared a remembrance of how a life-size Santa Claus set up in the living room both surprised and terrified him. Our thoughts drifted as well as the time. David also reflected on the 13-point buck he shot on opening day 5 months ago while 5 other buckhead trophies looked on. The untold stories of mounted fish and fowl hung silently on the walls for a discussion on another time. Later in the afternoon, the traveling nurse called requesting David to go to the hospital to remove the lung fluid with the help of an injection this time. So off we went. Don drove the 6.6 miles to the hospital for testing, and he found a room rather quickly. The heart monitor connectors seemed to look like leeches attacking his chest. David was patient while being subjected to the normal emergency room poking and prodding. Withdrawing blood, however, had proven to be a problem in previous visits. When the new technician was unsuccessful on her 3rd, 4th, and 5th try, he had had enough and refused any further exploratory drilling for blood. And when a nurse came in later asking if he had been tested positive for COVID, David said, "Nope, but I've been tested positive for being a pain in the ass." They kept him overnight for the next 4 days. Visiting hours at the hospital were 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., and over the next few visits, I watched David struggle with getting comfortable in bed after lying down for so long. I had come to Indianapolis with the thought of cheering up David and reviving memories by talking about old times. And talk we did. I learned about an adventure David had with my mom. She had taken a bus ride down to see David's mother, my sister Betty, and after a few days, David was charged with taking my mom back to the bus station, but he had different plans. And as it got later and later to catch the bus, he assured everyone that he had it covered. And little did they know David had picked up a 6-pack of beer, whereas he then offered his grandmother a choice of taking the bus or riding and drinking beer with him. Not that David would be drinking, of course. Mom really liked her beer. David's face really perked up when his biking buddy Mort came by to say hi and kiss the imaginary ring of respect. I watched his daughter Rose and brother Richard give comfort and support with love and donuts. But Dawn was the one person that aided his pain more than any other. I was also able to borrow David's son, Michael's Epiphone Hummingbird acoustic for the occasion of bedside concerts. I think I played about 3 sets over a period of several hours one day. And there was a nap for me sometime during one of those breaks. By the way, older people don't take naps. Naps take them. After 5 days, my comforting tour was coming to an end. My last half hour in the hospital held the biggest moments in my entire trip. It was when the doctor came in and showed the x-rays of David's lungs. Everything was so clear, and it was in black and white. There was no denying the transition going on in his life. I watched Dawn and David as they were face to face, speaking in tones only they could hear, and I understood the tears. And my intention was not to come up to say goodbye, but to ease his pain as best I could. And now for me to return to Florida. A few days later came an answer. Dawn had messaged me to let me know that David's first immunotherapy went well, and I was so happy to hear. And then 2 days later, my phone rang, and it was David at the other end. I was lifted from my sadness. He was doing better. He was home with his beloved barking mop tops and his angel and full-time partner in life, Dawn. He was again at his home, sweet home. I wondered why the phrase "in sickness and in health" floated through my head. Although part of the marriage vows, I feel it also applies to the bond of a family. We do what we can to help each other in times of need. I realized even someone ill can reach out and comfort those who are around them. Such was the character of David. We all share the same fate. We all share the same love. A week ago, Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, I was outside rehearsing a couple of songs to play at an open mic in Sebastian, Florida. It was there a text came in from my nephew, Richard. "Sad news, Kurt. Dave is probably going to pass today. At hospital now." I looked skyward and dedicated one of his favorite songs, Neil Young's Heart of Gold. I had a passing thought about David earlier in the day. Call him. Haven't heard from him. And then the idea got lost and the next random thought took over. Sometimes we should act on passing thoughts, especially when loved ones are involved. This day we gather to bid farewell to my sister's eldest child, David J. Yanasak. He was a man of purpose. He was respectful and worthy of great respect. He was a father, hunter, a Navy veteran, a biker, a leader of men, and a friend you could always count on. He made the world better just by being there. I am so glad to have been part of his world. And may everlasting peace be with you, David, my friend. But I understand that God needed someone who could calm down the Maltese. Love you.